This is the screencast for Lesson 29 in Stephen's C# 24-hour trainer. This lesson talks about manipulating files using stream readers and writers. Here's a little sample program that I put together for this try it. All it has right now is a bunch of text boxes and labels, and the goal is to load these things when the program starts and then save them when the program ends. So first, let's start with the load event handler. I'll just double click on the form to create it. Let me hide these guys so we have a little more room to work with. And in here we're going to load the saved values. So anytime you want to open a file, you should first check and make sure the file exists. I already added a using system.io statement directive up here at the top of the file, so this program can find the file class. So I'm going to say if file.exists, and then the name of the file, I'm just going to call it values.txt. So it will wind up in the place where the program is running by default here. So if the file exists, then I want to load the values. If it doesn't exist, I don't need to do anything here. The text boxes will just stay blank. So if it exists, I'm going to create a stream reader, and I want to begin with a using block so that it automatically gets disposed. So using stream reader, I'm going to call it value reader equals new stream reader. And here I want to give it the name of the file. You can see there's a bunch of overloaded constructors here. This is the one I'm going to use. I'm going to give it the file name, which is values.txt. So now we've got the stream reader open. Let's go ahead and start reading. We'll say first name textbox.text equals value reader.readline. Last name textbox.text equals value reader.readline, and so on for the others, for the street, city, state, and whatever. You can fill those in. They're exactly the same. When we get to the end, it's always a good practice to close your files. Closing the reader isn't quite as critical as closing the writer, because the reader doesn't buffer its output the way the writer does, but it's a good habit to be in. All right, so that works when the program loads, and if we run the program now, let me set a breakpoint and we'll run it and see what happens. Right now the file doesn't exist, so if file exists returns false, and we skip this code. If we go in here, I'm going to click on that line and press Control-Shift-F10. That forces the next statement to be that line. If I execute this statement, it'll crash with a file not found exception, because it couldn't find the file. So that's all as we expect. All right, so let's go back out to the designer here. I want to add a form closing event handler so we can save those values when the form closes. So let's go over here to the properties window, click on the events button, find the form closing event right there, and double click on it. And here we'll save the values. So we need to create a stream writer. In this case, we're just going to overwrite the existing file if it exists, so we'll use the simpler of the two of the constructors. And again, we want to do this inside a using block. So using stream writer value writer equals new stream writer. And here I need to give it the file name again. We'll call it values.txt. It's important that we use the same name for reading and writing, or else we won't be able to find the values we've saved before. So inside here we need to start writing the values. So I'm just going to say value writer dot write line first name textbox.text. Value writer dot write line last name textbox.text, and so on for the other values. When we're done, we want to close the value writer. And it's also very important that you read the lines out of the file in the same order that you write them into the file. Otherwise, obviously, you're going to get incorrect results. So now let's run the program. And I'll type in some values here, John Jackson, and it doesn't really matter what we put in here because we haven't written any code to save these values. Now if I close the program and then run it again, it correctly reloaded the first two values, the first name and the last name, and it didn't reload the others because we don't have code to do that. And that's it. It's as easy as that.